What's up, guys? I'm Pierre Aguilar and I am back with another Tuesday Tips. And today's tip is going to be really fun. I'm going to teach you how to take a photo that looks like this, taken from your cell phone, and turn it into a photo that looks like this. Much cleaner, a little bit sharper. I mean, you can't do too much with the phones to make it too sharp. It's never going to look like a DSLR, but you can improve the quality of your photos straight from your phone with 2 apps and a little bit of tinkering. So let's get into this Tuesday tips right now. Alright, so this photo that I'm going to edit today is one that I took earlier when I had sun. So around here I have a curtain, and it's kind of a white curtain, or it is a white curtain, and when the sun beats in, it's kind of acts like a softbox, a natural softbox, which is really cool. And that's my first tip of getting really good images out of your phone, is to find the light. That's one thing that I see a lot of people whose images just don't look the greatest, is that they fail to find good lighting for their images. And you know, a lot of times you don't have the choice, so you have to have a bad exposure. But if you can help it, find the light. So if you're in a house or some kind of building, look for a window where the light's peeking through, and use that and kind of get a side lighting. The lighting that I have in this image is kind of like a Rembrandt lighting. As you can see, I have a little bit of glow on my cheek, and then the one side is lit up. But really, you must find the lighting to really get clean images. I have another image here that right here that I took right before this video, and you can see the difference of having good light and not having good light. So without further ado with that, just really remember, if you want good clean images from your phone, find good lighting. So, oh, one more thing, when I say find good lighting, don't assume that you're gonna be outside and you're gonna look straight at the sun when you're taking pictures. You're gonna be washed out, and it isn't gonna be a good exposure. Just if you have a really sunny day, make sure that the sun's behind you, and so you can expose for the face and you'll still have good light, and your face won't be all washed out. And if you're in a building, look for that window and just try to get the best lighting possible. So let's get into the tutorial of how to make your pictures look better. So I have a picture here that I took earlier, and let me record on my phone real quick. Okay, so I have a picture here that I took earlier. This is one that I took right by this window. And the first thing that I'm going to do is I want to go into an app called Lightroom CC. And that app is free. You can download this app and use it for free. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the picture into my phone, into that Lightroom app. And after you do that, the first thing I like to do is go into my exposure, and I like to adjust the exposure to something that looks better than this. I mean, it's a nice exposure, but it's a little bit bright. And I like to bump up the contrast so that we have some distinct separation between your blacks and whites, or your shadows and whites, highlights. And then I'm gonna go ahead and mess with the highlights and make sure that nothing's blown out, and the shadows to make sure that they're not too bright or too dark. And this image actually is not bad right from the phone, because I did have good lighting. But as you'll see, we'll make it look a lot better, and we'll make sure our whites aren't too bright, and then our blacks, we'll make sure our blacks look black. And as you can see, the little bit that we did already improved this image. And now the next thing that I do is I go into color, and we're going to make sure that the white balance is good. With this picture, I have gray on here. So I should be able to get a good white balance. It's going to act like its own gray exposure card, and that looks about decent. If you can't find a good white balance with anything in your picture. Usually you're going to use like black or white or gray on your pictures to get the right white balance, but if you can't, you can adjust with this temperature slider, and you'll see that it turns your picture a little orange or a little blue if you go too cool, and that's just changing the temperature of your white balance. And if you, I think this one's a little too blue, so let's, or too warm, so let's turn it down a little bit. Now if you go to the tint is going to change your magenta and your green, so that's also part of your white balance. Okay, and now with vibrance, what your vibrance is it messes with your saturation, and but it doesn't allow your saturation to get crazy, like you'll see when I adjust the saturation, but it's something that will adjust your saturation levels but not let them get too wild. I'll have another video going into more detail about this type of stuff, like what's your vibrance and your saturation. If that's something that you guys want, just let me know in the comments, and I will have videos that go more in depth with that. But at this point, we're gonna just adjust a little bit. Don't get too crazy with that, because like I said, if you see you go too much, you look a little orange. If you go too little, it gets pretty gray. So we're gonna turn it up a little bit, and then your saturation, as you see, it goes to the extreme with that. So we will adjust those to just look good. And now what I go to after that is I go to detail, and I like to sharpen the image up a little bit. And to do that, I usually zoom in to make sure that I'm not getting too crazy. And what I mean by too crazy, if you see, if I bring the sharpen all the way up, you see how my face gets pixelated. And that's because when it's sharpening, the software has to figure out a way to make the picture look sharper, and that's the way that they do it. If you see radius, you mess around with radius, you see how the pixels get bigger and smaller. So what we're gonna do, and then detail, it just gets even crazier. So you can mess with those to see exactly what they do, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna adjust the sharpening only a little bit, not get too crazy. I like to make my radius kind of small, and my details, I just don't want them to get things to get too crazy. And this mask is something that kind of, if you will see it kind of smooths out your face when you are adjusting. But again, I'm gonna go a little bit, because when you're editing images, one thing that you want to keep in mind is that you don't want to go overboard with these adjustments, because your images can start looking really bad really quickly. And the object of editing images, unless you're going for a crazy look, is to make them look as natural as possible. And also I like to add a little bit of noise reduction, because I don't like the way the phone's a lot of times. So I add noise. Now if you look at this computer screen, this stuff over here is noise. These little dots that are on the computer screen, and you see if I go all the way over, it'll get rid of them. But again, you don't want to go too crazy, because now you see how my face looks just overly smooth and fake. So again, you're going to go a little bit. You're not going to go too much with that. You don't want to overdo any of this stuff. After that, I usually call it quits on this portion, and I like to remove chromatic aberration and also enable lens corrections. And again, these are stuff that deserve more detail, but with this Tuesday tips, I don't want to go crazy in the detail. So if it's something that you want to know more about, just let me know, and I will make a video on it. And last but not least, I like to go into effects and add a little bit of clarity. And clarity is like structure on Instagram. It's kind of similar. You see how it just makes everything look more dramatic and intense. And with that, again, you don't want to go too crazy, but I like to add a little bit. And dehazing, it will dehaze the photo. You see how it gets light, kind of foggy, and then less foggy when you use it. Here's a little bit. and I don't do anything with vignetting usually. I mean, every once in a while, but what vignetting is if you adjust it, it'll kind of give the little vignette shade around the image, and that's it for this part for Lightroom. And as you can see, when I look at the old image and you look at the new image, it's already a much better image. It looks sharper. It looks there's less haze, and the skin color looks more natural and less light and white. And so at that point, what you're going to do is we're going to save it. So we hit this little share button and save to camera roll, and do it at the maximum available size when you're saving. Let that do its thing. And once that's done, so really you can be done at this point. It's a nice looking image. As you can see, again, the difference is really noticeable, that it's a better image. And you can stop there if that's what you want, but I usually go a step further and I will bring it into an app called Snapseed. And both of these apps should be available on Android. Snapseed should be available because it is a Google app, but Lightroom, I'm assuming it is. If it's not, I have no idea, because I am definitely an Apple fanboy. But it should be. If it's on there, then you can do all these edits with any phone. And so what you're going to do is you're going to hit the plus button, and you're going to look for your image that you just saved from Lightroom. And so when I'm in here, what I really like to do, there's only a few things because you just adjusted a lot of the image in Lightroom. So I only do a little bit in here. I usually will go here to these adjustments, and I will go to ambience. And as you see, when you adjust the ambience, you see how it just changes kind of like the way that the colors are. And it really depends on how you want your image to look. And oops, I usually will get it kind of like, I'll probably go about right there. And again, it's just a subtle change. As you can just see, there's just like a little bit on my shirt. I could even bring the shirt out a little bit more, let it be brighter. Yeah, I think I like that right there. It's just real subtle. Like I said, all these adjustments that you're gonna make are gonna be really subtle adjustments. And they're not all necessary. It's just the way that I like to edit my photos when I'm taking them on my phone. You can also go into here and add a little bit of structure, but you already added clarity in the other one, so you don't have to really do that. And you don't have to add the sharpening here, but I do add a little bit because the software is just different on Snapseed than it is with Lightroom, I've noticed. And so you can add, feels like more sharpness when it comes to this one without getting kind of crazy results. But you see, like if you go all the way, it gets really sharp and it gets kind of crazy. But let's take that back a little bit. We'll add a little bit of that sharpness, and that looks good to me. As you can see, the Snapseed is really just adding little minor details that probably aren't really that noticeable, but there's just something that I notice in them. One thing that you can do with photos that I do often, especially when mostly when the photo is kind of dark, something I do typically when the photo is kind of dark, is I like to add a little HDR, but not too much. As you see, it gets really crazy with it being too much. Usually it's something that you use for landscape, but that's one secret that I use on my photos often. If they don't look the greatest, I usually will add a little bit of HDR and it will just add a little bit of dynamic range to it, more dynamic range. And that's something that you want to add definitely sparingly, because you don't want it to look too burnt out. And that's with your landscape photos as well, not just your portraits. You're doing a landscape photo and you're overdoing the HDR, it's not gonna look like a real photo. It's gonna look overly blown out, and I've done it before. And when I first started doing photography and I noticed the HDR. I thought that was the coolest thing, and I overburnt a lot of photos, and some of them turn out good, but it more so starts looking like a painting instead of looking like an actual photo. But anyways, add it sparingly on here if you want. Again, these are all things that I do. You don't have to do them, and that's all I do for that. Now, the reason that I really usually take photos into Snapseed is for these next two adjustments that you can do with Snapseed that I think are really cool. And the first one is this portrait. And as you can see, when you add this portrait, I usually use combo 1. It brightens up your face, just your face. It detects your face and brightens it up to add just a little bit more lighting, but the lighting is just, it's pretty even. It's not like the greatest, but I usually like to add that to bring out that. But the big thing for me, I like eyes to look really clear when I'm taking pictures, and when I'm taking a picture on my A7 Mark III, then it has eye autofocus, and so the eyes are typically just crystal clear. It looks amazing, but the phones don't really have that ability to get that crisp. So as you can see, this app will add eye clarity. You see if I bring it up all the way, it gets really glossy, and it just doesn't look real. I look like an anime character. But if you use that sparingly too, you can just make your eyes pop a little bit more. Then you can take that catch light, which is the light in your eye. When you take a picture, they call it a catch light. You can take that catch light and just make it pop. And that's all I would do for that. And then, so you can see now, again, it's not crazy different, but if you really look at it, it is a subtle difference. And then the final thing that I like to do is lens blur. And what I will do is I will get it around my head so that it kind of mocks that bokeh ability that you get on cameras. And then what I will do is I will adjust that, so the blur strength is a little bit too much for me. Let's bring it back a little bit. I mean, it really depends on how you like it, but I don't want it to be too crazy. And then the transition, and I like to touch back the vignetting, maybe a little tiny bit, and that's it. So as you can see, the little bit of edits that I did here in Snapseed, it wasn't much. It was more so just touching up the picture and adding those extra little details that set your photos apart from other people that just really don't pay attention to this kind of stuff. Afterwards, you're going to hit export, and you are going to save it. And once you save, it's going to ask if you want to modify it. If you don't want to modify it, then choose the other option, which is save a copy, but I will just modify it. If you go to the actual pictures, here is the original picture, and here is the updated picture. And if you just look at them, you can see the difference of the skin tones and the sharpness, and it just makes it look like a much better picture, a much more professional picture. And these type of edits are what will set your pictures apart from the average person's pictures who are just snapping pictures with their phone. And it works for other types of pictures as well. As you see, I have a picture of my dog Ben. This is the original photo, and while it looks really good, it can also use some help. So this is the original photo, and after the edits, this is the edit. And as you can see, I have the lens blur on there as well, and I made I just made everything sharper and the colors better, and yeah, it just makes your images look really good. And I do this with pretty much most of my photos, and it just makes your images look great. And you can do those for landscapes and everything. I always edit my photos before I post them, and if you go to my Instagram, you will see a lot of pictures that I've taken, and pretty much all of them are done on my phone, and you will typically not really tell the difference. Someone with an untrained eye or someone that doesn't really take photos a lot with a DSLR or a mirrorless camera will probably not notice a great difference. You can notice a little bit, but really you can take great pictures with your phone. And again, to wrap it up, the most important thing is you need good light, and you just need to make these adjustments that you can do right from your phone without going to a computer or anything. And then once you're done with this, you just upload them. What this tip is for is to show people that it doesn't matter really what type of device you have, you can take great photos, and you can take a better photo on a phone than someone that doesn't know how to use a $2,000 DSLR. And so that is what I wanted to leave you guys with today, and just teach you that if you really like taking pictures, don't worry about what you are taking pictures on. Take your phone and go out there. If you like shooting video, do the same. These phones shoot in 4K. So if you want some advice about shooting video, let me know in the comments as well. This is Tuesday Tips, and I will catch you on the next one. Thank you.